Hello, I am Milo, and it is commonly known that aerobic exercise is fantastic for physical health, but it can also be very beneficial for our brain health, specifically the hippocampus region. This is an important topic in the neuroscience world because it helps us fully understand the impact of exercise on the brain. So this will be a literature review diving into the effects of aerobic exercise, specifically on hippocampal volume. Hippocampal volume is referring to the overall size of the hippocampus. Think structure, not function. Although the hippocampus size is often linked to hippocampus function. It is primarily responsible for memory consolidation and spatial navigation, like processing facts and events from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. It is popularly known to be one of the first regions attacked by Alzheimer's, resulting in the popular symptom of memory loss. It is often measured using an MRI, which is a magnetic resonance imaging. For some more background, aerobic exercise is an endurance training activity like running, walking, swimming, cycling, commonly known to bring the heart rate up for a longer period of time. And it is a big subject of research because of its impact on the brain. So there are a couple studies that have shown increase in hippocampal volume because of aerobic exercise. One of the studies showed 2% increase on hippocampal volume, and another study showed an increase only on the left lobe of the hippocampus. Both of these studies were longitudinal studies, keep in mind, maybe showing you that there are more long-term effects of aerobic exercise than short-term effects. However, there are plenty of studies that show no significant changes in hippocampal volume. This is even after significant improvements in aerobic fitness. This is important because it shows that maybe improving physical fitness does not always translate to changing the structure of our brain. And several meta-analyses and randomized control studies found this. And a possible explanation of this could be study design. Many of these studies were short-term or acute, so it was one session of aerobic exercise, like one run or a week worth of runs, which may not be enough time to show structural changes in the hippocampus. So overall, this theme shows the fact that even if physical fitness improves hippocampal volume, the effects of it on hippocampal volume are inconsistent and may be relied upon other factors. So despite the inconsistent structural changes, the majority of studies consistently show improvements in memory and cognitive performance even after one session. So one run, and there are shown improvements of cognitive function and memory recall. So this suggests that aerobic exercise may impact how our brain functions even before there are structural changes. This was across multiple populations, and research has shown that aerobic exercise can increase the efficiency of how our brain regions communicate with each other, our different brain regions communicates with each other. This increases the functions of the hippocampus like memory consolidation and learning. The better they communicate with each other, the better memory consolidation and learning. Another key theme is the population differences. So in the studies that were found, people with clinical populations, specifically those with neurological disorders, showed much greater improvements in hippocampal volume after aerobic exercise compared to healthy individuals. Now, this could be because of the fact that their hippocampus is already impacted by these neurological diseases, so they have a much greater room of improvement compared to a healthy individual with a full-sized healthy hippocampus already. The biggest strength of these studies was the use of MRI machines. This gives a very clear picture of the brain and provides the most accurate measurement of the hippocampus, which leaves very little doubt for any errors in the measurements. Another strength of the study was the use of randomized controlled trials, which is fantastic for research because it rules out bias, which is the name of the game when it comes to research, and really focuses on just the cause and the effect relationship of the two. One more strength is some of the studies did in fact use the structure and function combination, which can better help find the true impact of aerobic exercise on the hippocampus itself. There were several limitations in current research. The studies are inconsistent in the way they are designed, the duration of the studies, and the type of aerobic exercise. This makes it difficult to directly compare the studies. Some of those studies looked at one single session of aerobic exercise, like one run or one walk, and then once you go look at hippocampal volume, versus other longitudinal studies that did it over weeks, months, almost a year. And structural changes are more likely to happen over a long period of time. Think about muscle growth. If you work out for one day or 3 months, it's going to be a big difference in the overall growth. Another limitation was the sample size. There were a couple of studies that had very small sample size, which are always known to be less reliable, and that could also lead to inconsistencies. All these limitations lead to big gaps in literature. There is a exercise protocol is one of the biggest gaps, just because there are so many different types of aerobic exercise, and it is very difficult to standardize this, but there are different intensities, different types, different durations, and it is very difficult to standardize this. A 1 mile run for one person could be very challenging, and on the other hand, for someone else, they could not even break a sweat during it. So it is difficult to standardize. There are gaps in examining structural and functional changes together. Some studies did, but a lot of the studies did not look at the structure and function changes together. Doing so would lead to a greater understanding of the impact of aerobic exercise on the hippocampus. So overall, there are not consistent enough findings to conclude that exercise impacts hippocampal volume. While hippocampal volume is a strong indicator of hippocampus function, there seems to be plenty of findings that show that aerobic exercise does positively impact hippocampus function way before it impacts the hippocampal volume. And it has very quick results. Even after one session, there has shown to be an increase in hippocampal function. And that seems to be the most consistent overall literature. And while there seems to be structural changes seem to be much more dependent on variables like the duration of study and the population. So for the future, I would suggest to standardize exercise protocols. I understand it's very difficult. Aerobic exercise is a very broad term, but if you could at least standardize the intensity, you don't want to handcuff yourself to one type of workout, like only running or one swimming, but try and standardize intensity, like try and regulate heart rate to a certain range for everyone. I think that could lead to more consistent results. I think another good place to start would be more longitudinal studies. You're not going to see any changes in just a couple of weeks. More longitudinal studies will better show the impact and let the hippocampus grow if there is an impact of hippocampal volume on the structure. And lastly, all research regarding this topic should look into structure and function to see what the impact of aerobic exercise is on the hippocampus, because that is ultimately the goal, is to see the change of on the hippocampus, not just the hippocampus structure alone. And here are my references. Thank you.